Just few hours away from the city is a dark and dense forest. Deep within the heart of the forest, where the trees seem to whisper and the wind carries secrets, lies a cabin, isolated, forgotten, and untouched by time. What begins as a fun weekend getaway for 5 friends turns into a nightmare they'll never forget. The car winding through a narrow, overgrown forest road. 5 friends, Jenna, Alex, Mark, Sarah, and Brian, are laughing and chatting as they drive. Jenna excitedly says, "This is gonna be amazing, guys. Just us, nature, no distractions. No phones, no internet, just peace and quiet." Mark says sarcastically, "Nothing says peace like being stuck in the middle of nowhere with no way to call for help." Sarah laughingly says, "Come on, Mark. It'll be fun. A break from the world." Brian teasingly says, "Just wait until nightfall. I bet Sarah's the first one to get freaked out by the shadows." The car pulls up to the cabin, an old, weathered building surrounded by tall trees. It looks abandoned, but there's a caretaker standing outside, an older man with a wary look. "You folks must be the ones coming for the weekend. I'm Tom, the caretaker." Jenna says, "Hey there. We're just here for a quiet weekend getaway. The place looks great." The caretaker warns the guests saying, "Make sure you stay inside after dark." Alex felt confused and asked, "What do you mean by that?" The caretaker says in a gloomy tone that there's a reason the woods don't see many visitors. It's not just the trees out here. The group begins to settle in the cabin while looking at the stunning view from the patio. Jenna is exploring the cabin, finding a stack of old newspapers with articles about strange occurrences in the area. Multiple disappearances reported in the surrounding forest over the last few decades. Authorities have failed to find any trace of the missing persons. Locals claim they saw strange lights and shadows. Jake said, comforting Jenna, "Come on, it's just old rumors." As the sun begins to set, the caretaker, Tom, is seen walking towards a restricted area, a horse shelter, which is surrounded by a tall, rusted fence. The group notices him and starts whispering. The shelter is old and fenced. The fence looks pretty old and weird. Brian shruggingly says, "Who knows? Maybe he's taking care of some horses, or maybe he just wants to be left alone." Mark jokingly says maybe it's the place where he buries all the missing tourists. This makes Jenna uneasy and she says, "Guys, maybe we should go inside before it gets dark. Now this place is starting to feel strange." Later that night, the group is sitting around the fireplace, telling stories. The atmosphere is tense, and everyone seems on edge. The wind howls outside. Sarah mockingly asks, "So, who wants to hear a ghost story? You know, to spice up the night?" Jenna says, "No one's coming to rescue us out here. What if we were to disappear? Just like the people in those articles?" Sarah jokingly says, "We're not gonna disappear, Jenna. This place is just old. But it's still a cabin, not a horror movie." Suddenly, the wind howls louder, and a loud thud echoes from outside. Sarah, startled, "What was that?" Brian begins to walk, saying, "Probably just a tree branch or something. I'll go check it out." Brian's stepping outside and walks towards the backyard. The moonlight reveals the old, abandoned car parked near the trees. It's covered in dust, and the windows are cracked. Brian, muttering to himself, "Weird. This wasn't here earlier." Suddenly, the sound of hoofbeats echoes through the air, coming from the direction of the horse shelter. Brian freezes. Inside the cabin, the group is getting anxious. The noise outside grows louder. Alex nervously checks Brian. "Are you okay?" Mark says something's off. "I'll go check on him." As Mark steps outside, the door slams shut behind him. The group inside hears strange sounds, scratching, shuffling, and low murmurs, as Mark tries to open the door. The door creaks open just in time for Mark to rush back inside. He's out of breath, eyes wide in fear. He says, "We need to leave. Now." Jenna asks what happened, Mark. Mark says, while breathing heavily, that there's something out there. Something watching us. "I saw something move." The group begins to panic. They lock all the doors and windows. Suddenly, the sound of heavy breathing comes from the walls, followed by a low growl. Sarah gets terrified and asks, "What is that? Where's that sound coming from?" On the other hand, Tom the caretaker is looking up at the cabin with cold, empty eyes. And mutters to himself, they never listen. They never learn. The group inside the cabin starts to get worried and stay close. The wind is howling and the house is shaking from the force of something outside. Jenna yells, "We need to get out of here. Now." Brian looks outside and says, "No. We can't. It is everywhere." Suddenly, the group hears a loud crash from the horse shelter. A shadowy figure moves through the trees, creeping towards the cabin. Mark whispers, "That's it. We are not alone anymore." The shadow figure getting closer to the cabin, revealing itself as a monstrous, twisted creature. Its eyes glow eerily in the dark. Jenna screams, "It's coming. We are trapped." The group attempting to escape through a back door, but it's too late. The creature bursts through the door. Mark screaming, "Run! Run!" The cabin in the woods claimed 5 more lives that night, just like the others before them. The creature, the abandoned car, and the mysterious horse shelter were part of a much darker secret that no one was ever meant to uncover.